Well, this strike comes down to ultimately two issues. It's about wages and it's about automation. So, Harold Daggett, who's the president of the ILA, has said not only are they wanting a 77% increase, which is significant, they've already been offered 50%, they're going to 77, but they also want to create airtight language, quote unquote, airtight language that removes the ability for the ports to use automation or semi automation. And it's downright archaic what they're asking for. If you want to understand what kind of automation they're saying they refuse to allow, it's not some complicated new fancy AI technology. We're just talking parking gates going up and down. They're not okay with that kind of automation. They're not okay with time card stamping automation. In fact, right now they have people who are employed as schedulers to write down who is there when they arrived and when they left, which allows for inaccuracy in time reporting. So they're really holding the port hostage with these demands. And that is why we're at a standstill. I think we could easily get there at the wages. The ports are doing very well. They have the financial capacity to meet the needs of 77%, but it's really the automation that is the sticking point.
Is that just a fear of automation becoming a slippery slope from your understanding?
I don't think it's a fear. I think it's a strategy. They have said, quote, I will cripple you, are words that have come from the president of the union's mouth. He is intentionally trying to cripple the American economy in an effort to get what they want and to maintain the job security. And it is downright un-American. I mean, I believe that every industry has the ability to implement basic technology, basic automations in order to advance and progress as a society. And what's interesting here is if you look at what they're doing, they're actually making the argument for why we need these ports to implement automation, because if they were automated, we wouldn't be being held hostage by this union. And the effects of the economy and the American consumer are going to be felt soon. And it is going to be widespread. There will be panic. There already is panic. There's already been a run on toilet paper and paper towels, which is completely unrelated to the imports from these ports. So it's interesting. That's really just psychological in nature. We're remembering when toilet paper wasn't available at COVID. And so people are going to stockpile toilet paper now. But what else will they stockpile? And who else is going to be affected by this and lose their jobs because supplies that they need to do their jobs haven't arrived? It's really going to be devastating if this doesn't get resolved soon.
So, Jessica, what has anyone on either side quantified the potential job loss from automation? How big of an issue is this in reality? Do we know?
There are a lot of analysts making estimates on the cost that this strike will have, and the ranges are significantly wide. So it's unclear. And the job costs, we can only speak right now philosophically. As construction materials don't arrive, then construction workers are not going to be able to do their jobs. And so they will be laid off or temporarily furloughed. And that impact will be devastating on those workers. So if you think about the union workers are being very selfish right now, and they do want the American worker and consumer to feel the pain. They're counting on it. They're looking forward to that. And I think one of the devastating things here is that they're saying, and don't blame us, blame them. So they're not taking accountability for the strategy. And I also don't think it's very logical, because the American worker and consumer is going to become outraged and say, you know what? Screw that. We want them to automate, because this is a danger to the American culture, society, workplace, labor market, all of it.
But Jessica, in terms of the actual dock workers, about 25,000 at the East Coast and Gulf Coast ports, what percentage or number of those workers would be at risk of losing their jobs if automation were to be implemented at a grand scale?
It all depends on what we're talking about with regards to automation. So the schedulers will lose their job if we implement time cards. Right now, there is already some automation. If you think about it, I was listening to an interview with one of the union strikers yesterday, and he said, decades ago, we were literally offloading 125 pounds of sugar with our hands. So that's not happening anymore. That's because of automation, and I'm sure that they celebrate it. So where automation is allowed and where automation isn't allowed is exactly what's under negotiation. There is already in their current contract language that prevents new automation. They're not saying that they're okay with that language, though. They're wanting to go backwards. They're wanting to remove automation that's already been implemented. And so that's really regressive and not progressive at all.